So I grew up in a homeschool family of 6, my mom and dad. I had 2 older sisters, myself, and then my younger sister. And I'd say there are 3 events in my life that led me to this moment. The first happened exactly 9 years ago today, on December 12th, 2008. My family and I were driving up to Michigan to celebrate my aunt's birthday when we hit black ice, rolled into the ditch, and rolled into oncoming traffic where we were hit by another car. As the van righted itself, myself, my older sister Lizzie, my younger sister Melanie were all more or less fine, a little beat up, but my mom and my oldest sister Amy were unconscious in the front 2 seats. So eventually they took us to a hospital where they brought us to a windowless and clockless room, such that time seemed to stretch for an eternity. And since none of us were 18, we had to wait for our dad to come up from Illinois before they'd tell us anything. So when he came up, we were able to go see my mother, who was still unconscious but relatively stable, and she would be unconscious for the next week. And then they took us to a little chapel in the hospital where they told us our older sister Amy had passed away. How could things ever be the same? I learned 2 very valuable lessons that day. 1, life is short. And 2, I needed to start thinking about what I would do with mine. So skip ahead a few years to March of 2011. I'm in 8th grade. I'm making my confirmation. And the day of my confirmation was one of the most joyous days of my life. It was the first time within my memory that I really felt God's presence. That whole day I was just on a cloud and felt like nothing could ever go wrong. And yeah, bad things had happened, but we made it through that, and things were so much better now. The Lord's presence was with me, and how could things ever be the same? Right away, the Holy Spirit began working that summer of 2011. I was at a last chance mass at a parish I don't normally go to, and there's a seminarian there giving his vocation story. And during mass, I was just filled with this desire to speak with him. And at the time, I had no idea where that came from. But looking back now, it's clear to see that it came from God. Now, mind you, at this time, I was shy, introverted, homeschooler. So walking up to him and just saying, "Hey, how's it going?" wasn't going to happen. I needed a reason to speak with him. So I spent all of Mass, all of it, mind you, coming up with a question. And this is the question I came up with. Are you ready? What do you call a seminarian? Because literally I had no idea. Was it father or brother, or maybe uncle? I know that one's not being used. So I went up to him after Mass, and I probably ignored all social norms of greeting and just said, "Hey, what do you call a seminarian?" He goes, "Well, my name is Ryan, so you can call me Ryan." It's like, great. Asked my question, got my answer. It was late. I was tired. Time to go. But then he surprised me. He did something I didn't anticipate. He continued the conversation. So he in turn asked the question, "Well, have you ever thought about the priesthood?" And this is the first time anybody had sincerely asked me that question. So it was the first time I gave a sincere answer. And the answer was yes. I had thought about the priesthood. But the priesthood to me at that time was only the crazy man's option not to get married. So I just assumed I was going to get married, and if for some crazy reason I didn't, well, then I'd become a priest. But I never considered priesthood for its own sake. It was only ever in opposition to marriage. He goes, "Well, you may never have 2 or 3 kids calling you daddy, but you'll have thousands calling you father." Oh, okay. So I asked my question, he asked his, he dropped a truth bomb, it was late, I was tired, now the conversation was over, I could go home. But then he had one more question. "What's your name?" Apparently I skipped that. I go, "Well, my name's Alex." He goes, "Okay, Alex, I'll pray for you." And out of that whole conversation, that's what struck me the most. Here was this 20-year-old college dude telling me he'd pray for me, and he meant it. And up until that point, the only person who really consistently told me that they'd pray for me was my grandma. And no offense, Grandma, college dude, I was 14. So I went home that night, and I just knelt by my bed and cried. And just, again, felt the Lord's presence like I did the day of my confirmation. I said, "Lord, if this is something you want me to do, help me to do it." And I wrote in my journal that night, "After all this, I suddenly feel very strongly that I should become a priest." How could things ever be the same? Since coming here, I've received many graces and much healing. And I think I found an answer to that question. And the answer I found is they can't be. Things can't be the same. After that conversation, after my confirmation, after the death of my sister, to go back to the way I was before that happened would be like a slap in the face to God. And in my time here, I've been able to thank God for each of those events, for that conversation, for that confirmation, and for the death of my sister. And I don't thank him that she's gone. I still miss her. But I thank him because now I can say with her, more than I ever could before, praised be Jesus Christ.